Okay, class, where we are now is to talk about these intestinal crypt epithelium and to look at the various cells that are being produced, that are there, the cells that are, primarily composed of secretory cells that produce intestinal juice, a watery mixture. You have the enteroendocrine cells, the enteroendocrine cells. These would be these down here at the base. Source of something called secretin and CCK, cholecystokinin. These are hormones. You have the intraepithelial lymphocytes. These are T cells that do not need priming. That means they do not have to go through the priming aspect. They're ready to fight. We already talked about immune. Panneth cells. These again are defensive type cells. They secrete defensins and lysozyme. We talked about in the immune. Stem cells can regenerate, and because these cells are being constantly flaked off. So remember now, you need a lot of what? Immune action there, because you're bringing in food, and food is dirty. Even though it's gone through the stomach, some of the bacteria may have not been burned up in the acid, because the acid didn't get to them. So again, primarily secretory cells that produce intestinal juice. Endocrine cells, intraepithelial. These two here then are going to be involved in immune action. These would be involved primarily in those digestive enzymes. So the words digestive enzymes, these, hormones, these, immune, these, and regenerate, these. That's pretty much in a nutshell what you're looking at. The stem cells migrate up to become the epithelial cells. See, they're down here. They migrate up. The existing epithelium undergo apoptosis and are shed from the villus tips. But when the stem cells differentiate in the panneth, they stay at the base. The panneth cells, again, they're immune, right? See, here's the panneth. Release defenses and lysozyme. They don't move up. The crypts decrease in number along the length of the small intestine as you get closer to the end. So that's that picture. The submucosa. Typically an areola, that's a loose connected to contain individual aggregate lymphoid. Again, Peyer's patches. And things like this here. That we talked about that in the immune. Peyer's patches, lymphoid follicles increase in number as you go towards the end of the small intestine. They protect the distal part against bacteria. Remember that you have normal flora in the large intestine, and you don't want it to creep up too much in the small intestine. All right. Also contains proliferate that leave them in a bloodstream and then return home and to produce IgA for secretions. Brunner's glands secrete an alkaline mucus. Brunner's glands, duodenal glands, Brunner, alkaline mucus, help neutralize acidic chyme that comes in Brunner's glands. When the protection is absent, that's when you get these ulcers. And see, these would be early in the small intestine, the duodenum, because that's where the acid is coming out. And so remember I told you that the most common ulcers are duodenal. They aren't gastric. The muscularis of the small intestine is except for the duodenum, which is retroperitoneal. Remember, it's behind the peritoneum. Intestinal juice. Normally secrete 1 to 2 meals of intestinal juice daily. Secreted in response to distension or irritation. Hypertonic or acidic chyme, slightly alkaline, largely watery, enzyme poor due to the fact that enzymes are limited to the intestinal enzymes bound on the brush border. See, the secretion goes into the lumen, but the brush border enzymes hold in the brush border these enzymes. And we'll be looking at these brush border enzymes when we look at breaking down the various foods. Now we're going into the liver. So we did the small intestine. Now we're going to the liver. I'm going to do a separate one on the liver so I can label it liver.